Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the February 16th SANDAG Public Safety Committee meeting. Before we start, I would like to ask our interpreter to introduce and walk us through the process on interpretation services for today.
Announcement from interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, the world, and select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on the mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation if you are in the meeting. Please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos y luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gracias. Before we jump into the meeting, can we ask our clerk to confirm that we have quorum for today?
Yes, Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you. And before we start, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you so much. And before we begin the meeting, I do want to acknowledge that there's a lot of new members representing. Can we go around the room and have everybody introduce yourselves, names, organization, and maybe how long we've been a part of? I suppose I could start. Councilmember Jose Rodriguez, representing the City of National City.
I'm John Minto, Mayor of the City of Santee. Been sitting on SANDAG at different committees and stuff for the last 22 years. And this is my second time on, and second year of my second time on borders. So not borders, I spent 16 years there, but public safety. So if you have any questions, feel free.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Octavio Rodriguez. I'm the manager of the Criminal Justice Research Division here at SANDAG and the coordinator of the Public Safety Committee.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Raul Campillo, City of San Diego. My third year, now going into my fourth year as the SANDAG Public Safety Committee.
Good afternoon, Rick Robinson, council member with the City of Oceanside in my first term with the city and new here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Kelly Martinez, Sheriff. Thanks.
Kendrick Sadler, Police Chief, City of Oceanside, and this is my very first meeting.
Good afternoon, Dave McQueen, Rancho Santa Fe Fire, and the representation for the San Diego County Fire Chiefs. This will be my second year with you.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Wall, Assistant Chief, San Diego Police Department. I'm in charge of our newly developed Legislative Affairs unit. It's day one, phase one for me, so thank you.
I am Tim Kern. I'm the Director of Transit Security and Public Safety for San Diego MTS, and I've been coming to these meetings for a couple of years now.
Good afternoon, Kaylee Chan, Senior Counsel, U.S. Attorney's Office, my first meeting.
Good afternoon, Stacy Moy. I'm the Special Agent in charge of the FBI San Diego Field Office. I'll be representing federal law enforcement, 2 years in this role, San Diego native. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kathleen Connon. I am from the Transportation Security Administration. I'm the Federal Security Director. I've been on this committee for 8 years, but it rotates, so I'm first seat this year.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Alonzo Gonzalez, council member, City of Chula Vista, currently the deputy mayor as well, and I have almost 10 minutes on this board.
Thank you, Chair. Ed Musgrove, San Marcos City Council, and I believe this is the start of year 4 in public safety.
Hi, my name is Peter Stevens, SANDAG Legal Counsel.
Hi, Noy Lethievong, Argus manager. Been here for 6 months. Loving it.
I am Cindy Burke, Senior Director of Data Science here at SANDAG, and I've been staffing or somehow associated with the committee since 2003 when we first formed it.
Good afternoon. Don Holmes, Deputy Chief Investigator with the San Diego District Attorney's Office. Here's an alternate for DA Summer Steffen.
Great. Thank you all so much. Welcome to the new members and representatives. I want to remind everybody of our process for member and public comments. Members can simply raise their hands and speak at appropriate points of our agenda. For members of the public and individuals present at SANDAG, you must complete a speaker slip and present it to the clerk, which will be taken first, followed by anybody online. If any of you, if you are a member of the public and would like to speak on any item virtually, please use the raise hand icon in the Zoom toolbar once we reach on that item on the agenda. If you're calling into the meeting, please press *9 on your phone. If you would like to comment on any item, all comments, whether emailed or live, will be part of today's meeting record. So starting on item number 1, Linda, do we have any comments from members of the public?
Yes, we have 2 virtually. We'll go first with the original draw, followed by last 3 digits, 731. Original draw, go ahead.
Yes, you know, it's interesting that all of you have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution, and we have an invasion of our border happening, and it doesn't seem to be of any concern when it is a public safety issue. You know, Chinese nationals are coming. There's people terrorists on the terrorist watch list that are crossing the border. And it's a federal felony to not use a port of entry. So if I went and wanted to cross just say in Kakamba, just, you know, it would be a federal offense and I would be put in jail. But then we're allowing all of these people who are claiming that they're seeking asylum, but they're really military age men that are coming across. And it's putting our community in a severe risk. But the thing is that this is a huge operation. People are uncovering all of the, you know, locations that they are being held at. They're even taking children who wind up disappearing. About 40% of the children that cross disappear. And, you know, at these facilities, there's people taking pictures of these children, their hands and their feet and their face, and, you know, looking them over as though they're a commodity, and they're going unaccompanied in truck or, you know, van fulls of them to who knows where. And it's a very big concern, but I don't understand, you know, under the Constitution, it is treason to not do something, but it's also, you're supposed to protect the borders against invasion. And it doesn't seem to be a concern on anybody's plate. And it's very sad to think that these children could potentially become sex slaves, go work at some factory, or have their organs harvested, because this is a huge money-making thing. And so I would think then that you guys have your money, or you're getting paid off not to say anything because you're facilitating this. It's very well organized. I mean, our homeless people here and people who lost everything in the storm don't have the same kind of commodities that these people get right off the bat.
Your time is up. Followed by last 3 numbers, 731. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, it's Truth. Sorry, I'm not there in person, but, you know, I don't know. I got better things to do. So hello to all you rookies. 8A Ray, is he there? Because I called his increased security advice 100% dead on. Isn't that amazing? Goes to show how well I know paranoid people. I wonder if Santa's going to use the excuse of the stabbing out front of this Wells Fargo building to justify the metal detector. Because in reality, it's evidence of how the public transit that Sandag pushes on everybody, particularly the trolley, brings with it horrifically violent crime. That's definitely an area regarding public safety that SANDAG has never addressed anywhere at any committee or any board. And Tim Curran, what have you done about that with your years of experience? You might be failing, something to consider. On good news, in honor of President's Day on the 19th, here's part of our country's first president, George Washington's State of the Union address on January 8th, 1790. Quote, "Fellow citizens, to be prepared for war is one of the most effectual means of preserving peace. A free people ought not only to be armed, but disciplined. The promotion of science and literature, knowledge is the surest basis of public happiness. To the security of a free constitution, every valuable end of government is best answered by teaching the people themselves to know and to value their own rights, to discern and provide against invasions of them, to distinguish between oppression and the necessary exercise of lawful authority, to discriminate the spirit of liberty from that of licentiousness, and uniting a speedy vigilance against encroachments with an inviolable respect to the laws." End quote. About 4 years ago, many Americans lost all knowledge of legitimate science or their rights, so were unvigilant and allowed increasing encroachments and disrespectful violations of our laws, resulting in intentional invasions and open oppressions upon our people. The solution: know your rights and never allow them to be trampled again, because to resist tyranny is to uphold morality. And that's why I always have to speak at SANDAG,
Your time is
whether I
up.
want.
And we have one in-person speaker, Tim Bilash.
Good afternoon, Timothy Bilash up in Delmar. I am a candidate for the 50th Congress this primary season ongoing. I've spoken to SANDAG before as a scientist. I pulled an article from this week's Nature magazine. There were 5 other astonishing things that I've never seen. And one of them is that in the last storm, there was garbage, to put it bluntly, well, mildly, being pushed into the Tijuana River, plus the devastation of the storm. So from a safety point of view, we're not paying attention to climate, but apparently the paper indicated how the refuge from the Tijuana River was getting into the air and we breathe it in. And so as a public safety matter, I'm not sure it's law enforcement, but I think when places flood out and houses get flattened and we breathe in dirt that makes us sick, that somehow that belongs under the purview of safety. So I raise these issues. We do not have enough scientists working on this, public attention to it. The local papers had an article, which is how I found it, and this other one was from a journal that I get every week. But I think that it needs to be more scientific look, not just from people who get grants to look at one particular aspect, but looking at the overview. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other member comments or public member comments? Yes, Councilmember Campillo.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to briefly let the members of the committee know on Tuesday, the San Diego City Council voted on a resolution to purchase another fire rescue helicopter, Bell 412 EXP, taking our fleet up to 3. I know that regionally we all work together to make sure that our wildfires hurt none of our residents, regardless of our jurisdictional boundaries. But just wanted to let you all know we're doing our part in the city of San Diego to make sure we're doing being able to protect everyone. So the 3rd helicopter, I was very happy to vote yes on that, and hopefully we won't ever need to use it. But when it does, we'll be there to protect everyone in our county. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Additional member comments? All right, moving on to consent. That's item number 2. Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
Yes, we have one. We have 2 actually virtual. First, the original draw and the last 3 numbers of 731. Original draw, go ahead.
Yes, you're working on an organized retail theft prevention. And, I'm just wondering because, under $1,000, it's not theft anymore. And so, are you wasting this money on things that the money could be spent elsewhere when, the crime might not be, fulfilled by having them, like the DA, go after it. But your project for safe neighborhoods, I mean, again, with the border invasion, I think that the 1.33 million should be going towards making sure that our communities are safe from this invasion and potential risks from, you know, these people who are being let out of prisons to come here, you know, and commit crimes. So I think we need to be mindful of that. And then with Argus, it's a little upsetting because they have been exempt from the trust ordinance in the city of San Diego. And I don't understand that because they're sharing data to Border Patrol and data from other sources like the ALPR and different things like that is left up to be having all of this data be shared with third parties. Even though the SDPD says that it's not being shared, it doesn't mean if they're not sharing it that it isn't being accessed by others and then being sold off or whatnot, because there are subscription-based data resources that people that the LEOs can use to share data. And so, you know, I don't trust that they aren't going ahead and taking data that is supposed to be secure and that the people believe is, and sharing it with other entities. That's just very dangerous, and it leads to mistrust with the people, especially when they're being exempt from the trust ordinance when they're engaging in that.
Next, we have last three numbers, 731. Go ahead.
Hey, that actually went different than I thought it was going to go. I was expecting a cut. The minutes show that John started the meeting late by 3 minutes, but I believe that's actually Jose's fault for no-showing everybody. Yeah, you did that. You no-showed. That's pretty bad. But that's okay because John did a great job, so maybe this committee could benefit from a new chair. There you go, I'm throwing out some controversies. The minutes have shown that the only topic the community is interested in is various public safety related issues. Is that true, do you think? I have a feeling there's a lot more talked about. I don't even know if that's accurate because I remember speaking about the minutes last time, and accuracy or inaccuracy of minutes has nothing to do with public safety related issues. Usually. Yeah, check that one. And the minutes need to show if the speaker was in favor or in opposition to each item. Because I know I checked the slips last time. Why am I writing? I'm in favor or I'm in opposition if it's not noted. I'm waiting for an answer for that from some committee or board, because that's just a waste of time. It's kind of like the slip having, would you like to cede your time? And that's never honored anywhere. You guys need to get new slips. You might actually need to get a, you might need to get a life, like get rid of SANDAG. That's kind of an option. Also, grammatically, a comma is not required or called for after the year when noting a date. I find that important, grammar. I was, however, glad that the minutes noted that the meeting indeed did last longer than 47 minutes, like I was going for. It might have even been a record-long meeting. Congratulations on that. Jose, you actually missed out. You should have been here because it was great to have a long meeting. So thank you for letting me take up a little bit of time to talk about the minutes. Concludes my comments.
Thank you so much. Do we have any additional comments or questions? All right. So just looking at consent number 2, can I get a motion or make it easier? Is everybody in favor? Yeah.
I'll
Do
second.
we need
Chair.
to take a vote? Okay, well, let's go ahead and entertain a vote. I will entertain a motion, actually.
I'll make a motion, Chair.
Yeah.
I'll second that. Second.
All right. So I'll take Mayor Mentos as he seconded first, if that's okay. Everybody, please utilize your clickers. We don't have clickers. Raise hand. Roll call.
Roll call.
All right.
Actually.
For South County, Chair Rodriguez.
Aye.
East County, Vice Chair Minto.
Aye.
North County Coastal, Councilmember Robinson.
I'll abstain.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Campillo.
Yes.
County of San Diego is absent. North County Inland, Councilmember Musgrove.
Aye.
Regional Fire Emergency Medical Services, Chief McQueen.
Yes.
San Diego County District Attorney, Deputy Chief Investigator Holmes.
Aye.
San Diego County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Martinez.
Aye.
County Chief Sheriff's Association, Seat A, Chief Sadler.
Aye.
San Diego Police Department, Assistant Chief Wall.
Abstain.
And that is all for voting members.
Great. Moving on to item number 3. This is the Public Safety Committee reports. That's items 3A and 3B with Chief Hendrik Sandler from Oceanside PD and Chief Dave McQueen from Rancho Santa Fe Fire District will report on recent meetings on the Chiefs and Sheriff Management Committee and on the San Diego County Fire Chiefs Association, respectively.
Good afternoon, Chair Rodriguez, Vice Chair Minto, Council, and all members. My name is Kendrick Sadler, and I serve as the Chief of Police for the City of Oceanside, and I am also the new Chair of the Chiefs and Sheriffs Management Committee. I wanted to share an update regarding our recent meeting on February 7th. During that meeting, we received an update from ARGIS Director Anthony Ray on the latest advancements with ARGIS. Additionally, we discussed the SANDAG Open Data Portal platform and received an overview of the newly implemented California Incident-Based Reporting System. This platform provides the public with the ability to view crime data in the region. This concludes my update from the Chiefs and Sheriffs Management Committee. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Rodriguez and Vice Chair Minto and committee members. My name is Dave McQueen. I'm the Fire Chief of the Rancho Santa Fe Fire Protection District, and I'm now the interim president for the San Diego County Fire Chiefs Association. So let me give you a couple of highlights on the administrative side. So county chiefs met on January 4th. We did not meet on February 1st due to the priority commitments and preparations for the storm number 2 that was coming through the county. San Miguel Fire Chief Chris Brainerd retired on February 2nd after 37 years in the fire service. He was the president for the San Diego County Fire Chiefs Association. New section to represent emergency managers was added by the County Fire Chiefs Association, so now they're going to be represented. San Diego County OES completed the Genesis Train the Trainer in multiple sites in January. The training was provided to fire, law enforcement, and emergency managers. Just a reminder, Genesis EVAC is going to be the new platform for evacuations and repopulation platform scheduled to go live May 1st of this year. Operationally in San Diego, in preparation for the storms that we had in January and February, several fire agencies, Oceanside Fire, Encinitas Fire, San Diego County Fire Authority, and the San Diego Fire and Rescue staffed swiftwater teams throughout the county. On January 29th this year, rainstorm number 1, which produced the unprecedented amount of rain that heavily affected the Spring Valley area. Throughout the collaboration of the op area coordinator, zone coordinators, we moved fire resources into the impacted area from other fire agencies to provide coverage for several hours while the local agencies were committed to numerous swiftwater incidents. San Diego County Fire Authority and San Miguel Fire and Rescue collaborated to provide over 70,000 plus sandbags to the surrounding communities. Through the California Mutual Aid Agreement, the op area coordinator secured 2 additional out-of-county swiftwater teams, one from Long Beach Fire, the other one from Orange County Fire Authority, to be staged in San Diego if ever needed during the storms. A pre-positioned task force consisting of 5 fire engines, 21 personnel, was also approved by CalES, and once the threat was reduced during these storms, all resources were released. End of report.
Thank you so much. Do we have any comments from members of the public?
We have 2 virtual, original draw followed by 731. Original draw, go ahead.
Yeah, with the Chief Sheriff's Management Committee, I would like to request that you do those in a hybrid platform and not just in person for transparency to the public so that the public can see what you guys are, engaging in and so that, everybody has an option for those that can't get to the, location where you're having them. It would be good for the public to be able to engage in all forms and not just have this be at a location only and not hybrid. And then I'm wondering with the advancements in ARGIS and this open data platform, what kind of information is going to be being shared? Is it going to be just, very vague and showing that there was an incident, or is it going to be sharing, personal information of people that maybe they're not aware of? And then with the storms and the fire department and all you guys that have had to work very hard to pick up the pieces of, all of the failures in the county for keeping up the infrastructure and whatnot. It would be mindful of you guys to understand that these storms were man-made and they were cloud seeding just before and during the storms. I've sent SANDAG and other committees the information on that should be distributed to you guys. And if it's not, I'm going to request again that it be done so that you understand that it's making your job harder, as well as chemtrails, because they spray out nanoparticulate matter that is highly flammable. So it's going to make it harder. It makes it harder for you to put out fires. Even the lithium batteries that everyone wants to engage in, you don't even have a way to put that out. But the storms are going to continue to happen, and you're going to have to be prepared to make more rescues. But it could be stopped if someone did something and push for legislation to ban weather modification and geoengineering and weather warfare.
Your time is up. Next, we have 731. Go ahead.
Hey, it's Truth. I'm actually going to concur with that last comment. So Police Chief Kedrick, the open data portal, it's kind of ironic since SANDAG is rarely open about anything. That might be the only thing they have open. Item 3B, Dave. On the news, I saw a rescue mission simulation at Legoland, but we all know what that was really about. You rescuers were all having fun at an amusement park. Yeah, that's good if you're getting training because they're going to need it. Hence the money Raul and crew had to spend on another chopper. Not for the rest of the county per se, but because they know they're going to need it because they refuse to fix the infrastructure. So you got to all enjoy all these facts.
This clip aired September 20th, 2023. Engineers say San Diego's one bad rainstorm away from disastrous flooding. We're talking about cars, homes, and stores all submerged in feet of water. The city has no money set aside to fix that system. And yet, engineers say we can't afford not to. Gloria and other officials called what happened, quote, a 1,000-year storm. NBC7 Chief Meteorologist Sheena Parveen says the hardest hit areas in our county saw at most 2 inches of rain per hour. The city says its pump station on Pacific Highway in Midway was one of 2 stations that lost power during the rain. 6 of its 15 stormwater pump stations were overwhelmed. A pump station is like an underground water tank, but for rain. When it gets full enough, pumps are supposed to push that water out into a bay or ocean. Most of the city's 15 pump stations were built 50 to 100 years ago.
Water's leaking out through the walls. Like I was saying, there's cracks everywhere. Water's coming through.
In a presentation before a city council committee, stormwater officials said 4 pump stations were at risk of critical failure, meaning blocks of streets would be submerged in feet of flooding. Sound familiar?
Yeah, real familiar, huh? We know what happened, and they want to tax everybody for their criminal negligence. No, not going to happen. So thank you. That concludes.
Time is up, and that concludes the virtual speakers.
Thank you so much. Any questions from committee members? Comments? Yeah, Mayor Minto.
Yeah, I personally want to thank all the fire around the county. I think they did some incredible work. It's unfortunate that we did have the flooding that we did. I know in Santee, our firefighters were busy with several swift water rescues. We had people before the storm go out and contact a lot of the homeless people in the channel and riverbed areas and creek areas. Unfortunately, not everybody left. So We even had Chula Vista Search and Rescue up there in Santee helping out because people were reported in the water, and unfortunately, we didn't find them for a week later. One thing that I did learn, probably should have known ahead of time, so I would encourage every council to talk to their staff to find out where there are places in their city or even in the county that are managed by other agencies, like for instance, Caltrans or some other environmental group, because they don't always do the necessary mitigation of underbrush or things of that nature. And sometimes that's where the real issue comes from. And so, we have a situation like that in Santee, so I've asked staff to kind of identify all that for us so that we can monitor it, call up Caltrans or whoever it is that needs to handle it so that they can, mitigate that, those potential or future disasters that are coming. And then, because we don't really want to send out our public safety officers to be in harm's way either. But thanks to everybody. And I know the coppers were busy and up over there wasting water, trying to rescue people and move people out. And, it doesn't take much for them to go down underwater either and be potentially a victim. So I just want to say thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Mayor Minto. Any other additional comments? All right, this was an informational item only. Moving on to item number 4. We have the County of San Diego's Community Assistance, Recovery, and Empowerment Care Court Program, presented by Dr. Luke Bergman from the County of San Diego.
Now it is. Great. Hi, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate that we've got a slide deck up. So I'm going to give a pretty quick slide-aided overview of what we call the CARE Act program, and then be here to answer any questions that members of this committee may have. Certainly given a lot of presentations on this before, and so this may be a second dose of suffering for some of you. I apologize in advance for that. The CARE Act program was established through legislative process, so SB 1338, which carried forward legislation that mandates the establishment in every county of San Diego a new court, a civil court, not a criminal court, but a new court to be situated within county superior court. And that is meant to be devoted to establishing orders for care for a very particular cohort of people with behavioral health conditions. And these orders for care are, to be clear, orders for voluntary care. So the CARE Act program establishes through statute that there needs to be a court in every county that is equipped to establish orders for voluntary care. This strikes a lot of people as maybe a bit oxymoronic or paradoxical, at least, that there would be a court order for something voluntary. But that is, in fact, what this process is meant to establish. Can we go to the next slide, please? So there's been a lot of confusion around, I would say, to whom, which cohorts of folks the CARE Act program is meant to apply. I think some of the confusion about this is driven by the public discourse from on quite high about what the CARE Act program kind of means to do and what its impact across the state may be. The language at its announcement in various press conferences, et cetera, was very, very heady. It was described as something that would precipitate a fundamental transformation in behavioral health care. I think folks were meant to sort of feel that there would be a before CARE Act program and an after CARE Act program, kind of with respect to the state of behavioral health care in the state of California. So expectations have been quite extraordinarily high. That the impact of the CARE Act program would be massive. And there was a lot of deliberate linking in the public discourse of the CARE Act program to people who are experiencing homelessness. So again, the sort of general public perception has been that this would be massively transformative and that it would have disproportionate and kind of targeted impact on people experiencing homelessness. In fact, it is meant for a very specific cohort of people that don't necessarily align with those expectations. So you have to be an adult. You have to be diagnosed with schizophrenia spectrum disorders, and one or two other psychotic disorders. But these are very specific and particular and describe a cohort of people that is in fact quite small in this state. So by no stretch of the imagination is the CARE Act program meant to apply to everyone with a psychotic disorder. One of the most common diagnoses that includes psychosis, bipolar disorder with psychotic features, is not included in the eligibility criteria, for example. So that many, many people who are experiencing psychosis just from jump are not included in this. So it's schizophrenia spectrum. The other, I think, significant diagnosis that's an inclusion criteria is substance-induced psychotic disorder. That's a tricky diagnosis. Let me just note that is given to people for whom the origination of psychosis. People know what psychosis is. It sort of shorthand is disconnection from reality. So substance-induced psychotic disorder is meant to refer to people for whom the origination of psychosis is linked somehow to substance use. It does not mean people who seem psychotic while they are intoxicated, which it may be confused with. That would be a much larger cohort of people, right? But for people whom we can identify through historical understanding, the origination of psychosis is linked to substance use. That's a much smaller cohort. So again, to the point of like making clear, it's a pretty small group of folks. You must not currently be in treatment. You must meet program criteria. Otherwise, kind of as determined, there's a lot of court discretion in kind of determining who is eligible here. Along those lines, the court would want us to sort of feel assured that you would likely benefit from this program. You may be unhoused. You needn't be unhoused to be eligible for this program. So that's also just a kind of important point of clarification. Next slide, please. So there is a pretty complex circuitry to the CARE Act program, and so this is a kind of as simple a schematic as we could muster for it. But it begins with, we use the word referral in this case because it's a little bit more colloquial. It refers to what technically is in the statute is described as a petition. So certain members of the public and people with professional standing in behavioral health, first responders, may submit a petition, which is a document, describing a respondent, so a person who kind of meets the criteria. They submit that to the court, this new court that's been established. The court reviews all of those petitions and makes what here we're calling an initial determination. The statutory language is prima facie. They determine, does this seem to kind of like does it have face value? Right? Does it look like, yeah, this is legit, or does it look like, oh, you're talking about a person who only has substance use disorder here, for example, right? So that clearly doesn't qualify. Or you're talking about a person who's got major depressive disorder with no psychosis, so that clearly doesn't qualify. So prima facie is the first determination that's made. That's made by the court. Court determines prima facie. Then the petition is forwarded to me and my incredible CARE Act program team within Behavioral Health Services, and we conduct, within 2 weeks, a thorough investigation of the case, and we draft a report making a recommendation, a preliminary recommendation, that either a CARE Act agreement be arrived at and a care plan be pursued with the court's oversight, or we make a recommendation that the case be dismissed because we've discovered through our investigation that basic eligibility criteria aren't met. Just to say that, not that I'm, meaning for everybody to feel sympathy towards me, but that 2 week period is a profound challenge, because in a lot of cases we're needing to make contact with people who are chronically street homeless and that sort of thing, engage them so that they trust us to some extent, gather lots of information from them, which is protected by lots of federal law. and then make a cogent recommendation to the court. If there's a recommendation to move forward, a care agreement is signed between the court and the respondent. The petitioner is more or less out of the picture at this point, and the important dyadic relationship is between the member of the bench in this court and the respondent. And then there are periodic hearings thereafter where progress on the care plan is monitored. And the care plan involves, in every case, robust connection to behavioral health care services and insurance of ongoing care. In some cases where it's appropriate, the care plan also specifies, and there would be a court order to pursue housing for people who are experiencing homelessness. Can I go to the next slide? So the duration in statute is for 12 months. That's that sort of is that's the default expectation, is that the court order would establish a care plan that would last for a year. I just mentioned that there are periodic hearings. Those fall at a 2-month cadence. And then at the end of a year-long period, a determination is made by the bench that the respondent either graduates, as it were, right, sort of is sufficiently well and engaged in ongoing care not to need, in the bench's opinion, a court order to help motivate them to continue in care, or the care agreement may be extended for an additional year. And that would, be, again, reflective of a volitional agreement between the respondent and the bench to establish an additional year of CARE Act work. Can I go to the next slide? So these are just some very preliminary data. This is maybe a little bit of a teaser. There are obviously additional data, but this is all I'm showing you now, reflecting how the petitions that have gone to the court and then been forwarded to behavioral health services for investigation or follow-up. So 73 total petitions received by me, right? Not received by the court, but by me. So all of these meet, again, that threshold, prima facie, kind of like looks legit, looks like it meets face value. And here's the status of current status of all of those petitions. So 7 are in active investigation and continued investigation. In 10, the investigations have been completed and submitted to the court. There are care agreements established for 19 people thus far. This program launched in October. We've got 19 care agreements of the 73 petitions that have been forwarded to us, and then 30 have been dismissed. I wonder, among members of this committee, whether 19 feels successful or not. I will note it is far in the lead of every other county in the state of California who's participating as a round 1 pilot county. So I think, we of course feel quite good about ourselves in this respect. But I think it really most meaningfully speaks to the fact that this is a program with modest aims, right? We've got 19 care agreements. And it seems, relatively speaking, that looks like, a successful body of work. Does that mean that I've talked too long? No? No worries, Mayor. Okay. Hope all is well. It's still happening. Everybody okay? Okay. So again, the numbers are modest, and we think probably successful, right? We think this is probably how this probably should be playing out, where when we kind of hinge it to what we know about morbidity prevalence reflecting these conditions. I would also note that in each of the cases, we have been doing robust outreach, right? And so there are a number of cases where we've, improved engagement in care without establishing a care agreement. But just because the respondent has, been engaged and been motivated as a result of their interaction with our outreach teams to further engage in care. I've got one more slide. This is just to sort of clarify some of the misapprehensions that have attended the CARE Act program thus far. There's a common understanding that the CARE Act will allow the court to mandate treatment. And that's not true. It establishes, again, as I emphasized before, an order for voluntary care. There's been a lot of understanding that the CARE Act program is for anyone with a behavioral health condition. Again, not true. Specific diagnostic criteria must be confirmed. And then there's also been a presumption that the CARE Act program is for people who are experiencing homelessness, and that's also not the case. I think I may have a valedictory slide. Yeah, so for more information, here's this QR code. We encourage people who are interested in the CARE Act program to call the Access and Crisis Line, which is the number which is here, and or 988 if they are feeling that they're in the midst of behavioral health crisis or seeking help or connection to care. I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bergman. Do you have any questions or comments from members of the public?
We have two virtually, starting with 731, followed by the original draw. 731, go ahead.
Are you guys all right? Because if not, we got a new place for all of you. Kelly, what do you think? How many greedy Luke Bergman presentations must we suffer from? Because he's so lucky I decided not to go in person. Of course, he probably just run away before hearing me speak like last time I saw him. Actually, I've seen him so many times. But I don't think Bergman works for the type of agency we should be listening to. And he also doesn't seem to have words based in reality. And I'm going to give you an example of that. Just a second. Let me open this up. I was listening to another video. Maybe you get to enjoy that one next. Here we go. You unmute. Hello.
It's a locked facility. It feels like a day spa, like places I used to spend hundreds of dollars to send my wife.
So he would send his wife into one of these programs. Isn't that interesting? Is that someone we should be listening to, you think? And some politicians think this care court is the answer to all of their problems. Just sweep the homeless people off all the streets and we can make it look like we actually solved something. Just listen, we need their trust. Oh, they don't necessarily have to be homeless. Oh, it's not just for substance abuse. Is locking up only 19 people a success? Really? This is a court without a jury, as far as I know, that locks people up and steals all of their belongings, and they could force them into so-called treatment, that is drugs, and housing plans, whether they want any of it or not. And it's all justified by the government claiming that they care about people. Someone show me evidence of that ever being true, rather in this state or country or ever in human history. But people who are homeless are really being used as a guinea pigs for a system to eventually apply to every person walking the streets. And especially with SANDAG, it'd be easy to suggest and label most people on the main board as being psychotic and in need of serious care. That might even be self-induced psychosis from an obvious disconnection from reality. Prove me wrong. Thank you.
Next, we have the original draw. Go ahead.
This is so convoluted. I mean, you're talking voluntary, but you're making court orders. And at no point did you ever say someone's voluntarily coming. You're getting referrals from others. And then you're investigating these people and then forcing them and coercing them and trapping them into an agreement. So I don't know, unless you have something else to share where it is actually voluntary for these people, because everything you said is proving that it is not. They're not coming to you asking for help. And if they have a psychotic disorder or schizophrenia, pretty sure they're not even going to really know what you're doing or what you're trying to get them into. So you're coercing them, using their, plight to, force them into treatment. And if we're doing this for disconnection from reality, then I second what the previous speaker said, because that would be you guys. That would be all of these boards doing this to these people and pretending to sit here and pull wool over the people's eyes and make them believe that this is some kind of voluntary treatment when you got Prop 1 and SB 43 that go just in line with this. Those are involuntary treatments. You could use it for anything across the board. And that's what's so terrifying. Anybody gives you an inch, you guys take 10 miles and you'll run with stuff and then you'll create, because it's like mental health, behavioral health. Which one is it? You intertwine the two. And in doing that, you can use so many things under that umbrella to put people into forced treatment, which is more drugs, which is not going to help because you're just adding to the issues by giving them more drugs and more drugs, trying to get them off of other drugs so you can give them your drugs. All you're saying this is voluntary. You can't be doing that. You're lying to the people because at no point is this voluntary. They're not coming up to you. They're not saying, I want help. You're going to them and coercing them into this. So you need to get your facts straight and quit lying to the people because, I mean, you can't just pull wool over everybody's eyes like that.
Time is up. That completes all virtual comments.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from members of the committee? Yes.
Thank you. Afternoon, Dr. Bergman. And you may have said this, but if I missed it, I apologize. That from that period when they see the court and the 2-week assessment, are they custodial, the individuals in any way? Are they on their own? What happens?
Thanks for the question. They are absolutely on their own. And so they don't see the court with the submission of the petition that is submitted separate and apart from them by the petitioner. Eligible petitioners include first responders, behavioral health clinicians, family members or cohabitants of people who meet criteria, and kind of like other social service workers who may come in contact through their work with people who may qualify.
If I may follow up then, if first responders are able to petition, and maybe the chief can answer this, I don't know. Are they now trained or will they be trained on how to do that?
We have done a lot of talking to various agencies across the county about how to do this. And it's complex, I would say. I mean, I think that's, that's some of the feedback that the state has gotten from lots of counties is that the petitioning process involves, not unburdensome paperwork. And then it also includes specification of diagnosis confirmation and which requires access to health records. So it's a fair amount of work that has to be done kind of on the, in background before submitting a petition that'll meet prima facie.
Thank you, sir.
One question. Do you have a established goal of the amount of petitions that you hope to obtain in a period of time? I don't know if you do it per year, or quarterly, or monthly. Do you have anything like that?
We don't. We're not evaluating this program volumetrically. I mean, we've made some estimates about what we think is likely that really anchor back to morbidity prevalence, what we sort of see in the community, how many folks we think would likely be eligible. We're interested in whether or not this helps people stay better connected to care over time. And so that's, I would say, the most important evaluative criteria among people who are signing care agreements. As one sort of, cell of an evaluation among people who are signing care agreements, do they seem in the context of a care agreement and thereafter to have better luck staying connected to care, and do, behavioral health outcomes generally seem better thereafter relative to poor? That'll be an important. We're not doing any sort of randomization or clinical trial in evaluating this. So a lot of it will be kind of pre and post. And then we're very interested in how this, and this is consistent actually with a lot of how this initiative was talked about by its authors in the legislature and by the administration as well. We're very interested in how this can be a diversion from conservatorship. It is, and as you've noted, continues to be confused with conservatorship, right? A lot of the dismissals that you see in the data are because it's voluntary. And so people have chosen or elected not to respond at all to efforts to engage. And one of the things that the state has imagined is that it might be an effective diversion, a less restrictive diversion from conservatorship. And so one of the things that we've established, so the Public Conservator's Office sits within my department. And one of the things that we've established in rolling out the CARE Act program is a kind of compulsory consideration with every conservatorship referral we get of the utility of the CARE Act program as an alternative, because it's less restrictive. And if we can get people, kind of motivated to be engaged in care, we know that outcomes are preferable to those resulting from involuntary care agreements.
Yeah, Mayor Minto.
Yeah, a couple questions here. One is, you mentioned a reevaluation every 60 days. And I think that if somebody that's in a home somewhere or something like that, easy to do a follow-up evaluation. But if it's a homeless person, I don't know how easily you're going to be able to find them to do a follow-up. And if they are homeless, I don't know how often they're going to be treated, because they're difficult. That's why they're called transients, or used to be, because they're transitory in their migration habits. And then 19, I think it's too early to tell whether that's a good number or not, because just because you have 19 people in there doesn't mean it's going to be successful. 13 of them might drop out. And so you only had just a handful of people that accomplished what the goal is. I think maybe in another, well, how long is it? What was the date that you started? I forget.
October 1st, Mayor.
October.
So yeah, an evaluation would, need really, I think, at least a year of operations in order to be legitimate. So I agree with the last point that you made. With respect to the challenges that face us around people experiencing homelessness, if there is a person, who signs a care agreement, who has been experiencing homelessness in particular with some chronicity, the order would specify that housing would need to be a priority, because we know that housing is probably the most important factor related to good outcomes in healthcare. And so there would be an understanding that needs to be a priority in the care plan, that we've got to get that person housed, or we can't have high expectations for how well treatment would work.
So this goes back to some of the comments that were made about then this would not be voluntary, be compulsory. And
that's not true.
Well, if you get them a house and you say you have to be in the house, I mean,
no, so
that's not voluntary.
There's a court order for the care plan. And I realize that this is, an enigma wrapped, in a, I don't know, a ham sandwich or something. I mean, it's a peculiar sort of arrangement of the court order for voluntary care. I as Behavioral Health Services Director in this, in rolling out this act, I face actual sanction for not producing the care plan, and for not doing the outreach that I need to do, and for not ensuring that what's in the care plan is made available to the respondent. The respondent genuinely, and we've seen this play out, right? A lot of people have refused engagement. There's no sanction that's levied against them. And we could talk all day about sort of like, well, is it effective to have this kind of court order? Does it do anything to motivate people in addition to how they would be motivated if we engage them without the specter of the court? That's a very good question that, we don't have an answer to right now. But it is, in fact, the truth that nothing in the care plan is mandated. I am mandated to offer, but the respondent is not mandated to accept.
Well, after, El Cajon PD did a very good video about homelessness. And I don't know how many people saw it, but they contacted 197 people, and 196 of them said, I do not want services. My guess is it's going to be very similar in this fashion. And in 1980 and 1981, when I worked the streets in downtown San Diego as a law enforcement officer, and I dealt with people who were homeless, I asked them that same question. Can I get you off the street? Can I get you some help? And the answer was the same. No.
Yeah.
So nothing has changed in that 40-some years, except the number of people now that we're dealing with. So how do we change history with this program? I guess maybe that's a great question. How are we going to change what's happening in the history?
And I'm taking it not as a rhetorical question, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, a lot of that is about how we engage people in being motivated to change. And I would say, and there's a ton of science behind what works best in engagement. It's one of the reasons that I put forward this question of like, does it make it more effective that as we are with the work of clinicians and peer support providers engaging people in the idea of getting into care, is it helpful to them in their efforts to get people housed to say, and you know, there's this court program. And guess what? You're going to be assigned a public defender. And the public defender is going to advise you independent of it. And the public defender may very well advise you not to be involved in this court situated program. But there's this question of like, does the invocation of the program at all from that, kind of clinical and peer support capacity, does it help motivate people? And we call that like the black robe effect, right? Does the sort of specter of a judge being involved motivate people? It seems to, maybe in some cases. It's very hard to say. We do know by and large that engagement through peer support and through the work of clinicians seems to work better than engagement directly from law enforcement. And we know that engagement among those cohorts of people works especially well if it's persistent and repeated, right? So it's not at all surprising that in a, in response to an instance of inquiry, virtually everybody says no. I used to run a homeless outreach program in Detroit, Michigan. We had an average of 16 to 20 contacts before we could get anybody into any services. This is work that takes repetition and kind of commitment to the population. I think one of the ideas behind the CARE Act program is that it is meant to motivate counties to work as hard as they possibly can on behalf of people who are most in need.
Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm very much in favor of programs. I just want to make sure the programs that are going to work, that are efficient, and I just don't want to go down that slippery slope.
I appreciate that.
Just because there's a court hearing, some people who are in crisis, they don't understand the difference between a civil court hearing and a criminal court hearing.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Additional questions or comments? Yeah.
I have a follow-up question along the same vein as Vice Chair about the incentives of the program. I believe the answer is that it's going to be up to the discretion of the court. My question is, do the individual judges as a court offer working with individuals that could benefit from the CARE program, waiving their fees, the penalties, jail time, those kind of potential penalties will work with you if you opt in to this program? Is that how it works in practice?
So those are court discretionary matters. I know in some cases, the CARE Act program is being used in those ways, but those are, those are absolutely, points of discretion for the court. I have the opportunity to, consider the CARE Act program instead of conservatorship recommendations, right? Ultimately, that's still a court decision, but it's one where I can make an explicit recommendation.
Thank you. Any other additional questions or comments? All right, this is an informational item only. Thank you so much, Doctor, for coming. And moving on to item number 5, we have an update on ARGIS, the California Senate Bill 54, by our own Director Ray.
Good afternoon, Chair Rodriguez and members of the Public Safety Committee. Give me just a moment here to prepare. Good afternoon again. Sound better like this? Like this? All right. So last summer, July and August, there were a couple of news articles that were printed, and they discussed the relationship between the Border Patrol and ARGIS, and they specifically highlighted potential risk to immigrants and potential misconduct by immigration authorities. And I have here the titles. One of the articles was titled, SANDAG database puts immigrants at risk, advocates say. And the other title said, for years, the San Diego region has given Border Patrol access to data. Will California intervene? And these articles brought up issues. And I discussed this with Chair Rodriguez, and we decided that we should probably meet ARGIS and this group here with some of the community advocates, and that I should come and do a briefing on what ARGIS is doing to stay in compliance with SB 54. And we did several months ago meet with some community advocates. Some of the members that were present were from the groups related to Alliance San Diego, the San Diego Immigration Rights Consortium, Trust San Diego Coalition, the ACLU, one of the authors of one of the articles, and some other people that were there. And we met, we discussed for about an hour and a half what ARGIS is, what ARGIS does, how it works, and how we try to comply with SB 54. It was just the first meeting. We're hoping to meet again, maybe beginning in March, and keep this conversation going so that we can overcome either misunderstandings or agree on understandings or find out what we can or what we cannot do. But I thought it was a very positive meeting. It seemed to end very well. I was supposed to come and do a presentation for you in November, but I wasn't feeling well. I apologize for not being there. So I'm here today to tell you what ARGIS is doing to stay in compliance with SB 54. And I want to note that in December of 2019, the director of ARGIS at that time also came to this Public Safety Committee and did give an update briefing on what ARGIS is doing to stay in compliance with SB 54. And you can feel free to interrupt me at any time. I've been married for a long time, so it's something that just happens to me in that sense. So ARGIS, little background, ARGIS is the Automated Regional Justice Information Sharing System. It's 43 years old. We're basically an information sharing hub. ARGIS collects and shares criminal justice information to state, local, and federal law enforcement entities through different applications that we've either created or hosted. ARGIS serves over 5,000 law enforcement users in the region, and we have over 60 state, local, and federal agencies in that area. CLETS is the California Law Enforcement Telecommunications System. CLETS is the state system. It's owned and operated by the State Department of Justice, and that's a system that allows all local law enforcement agencies in the state to share criminal justice information. And in this region, people access CLETS through ARGIS, but the San Diego Sheriff's Department is actually the regional coordinator. So the Sheriff's Department is responsible for testing and certifying people that can have access into CLETS. SB 54. So SB 54 amended the California Government Code. It amended the Health and Safety Code. It impacted local criminal justice information systems, and it limited state and local law enforcement's ability to assist in immigration enforcement. And I want to read you a quote from the California Department of Justice Information Bulletin regarding the California Values Act database guidance from October 1st of 2018, which we follow. And that bulletin is in your materials that you have right now. And for the people that are listening online, it is also online for people to review if they'd like to do that. But here's the quote, I quote, "The Values Act generally prohibits law enforcement agencies from using agency or department monies or personnel to investigate, interrogate, detain, detect, or arrest persons for immigration enforcement purposes, including providing personal information for that purpose. The Values Act, however, permits law enforcement agencies to participate in law enforcement task forces, including sharing confidential information pursuant to these task forces, where the primary purpose of the task force is not immigration enforcement." And I'll end my quote with, "The Values Act permits law enforcement agencies to provide immigration authorities with information about a person's criminal history accessible through the California law enforcement telecommunications system." So on October 1st, the California Justice Information System provided a bulletin, basically, that updated the guidance regarding database governance. Now, ARGIS is not a law enforcement agency, but we are an independent agency that works with law enforcement. We're a joint powers authority, and we work with law enforcement agencies. And this bulletin applied specifically to entities like ARGIS. In February of 2019, the state updated the manual for policies, procedures, and practices regarding CLETS use. So what we did was we, based on these two updates and working with the Sheriff's Department, who regulates the CLETS use, we made the following 5 steps to make sure that ARGIS was within compliance of SB 54. First thing we did was we eliminated all access to ICE records, all immigration records. ICE, ERO, Immigrations and Custom Enforcement Removal Office, they declined to sign the CLETS agreement requiring users to comply with SB 54. They just said they weren't going to comply with that. So we immediately disabled all the ICE ERO accounts for the users, and we moved access to immigration-related information for all users, not just ICE people. What that means is that right now, actually since 2019, there are no circuits that connect ARGIS with ICE or any immigration databases. There are no virtual private networks that connect ARGIS with any immigration databases. There are no connectivity with any ICE servers. There was before SB 54, but once SB 54 came in, we severed those completely, and there is no connectivity at all. There is no connectivity with ICE immigration information. Nobody can get into ARGIS and find any information regarding ICE. ICE cannot input into the database, and nobody can search information regarding ICE or immigration in that database. And there are no ICE ERO personnel that have access to ARGIS databases or applications because they refuse to comply. And I was contacted in the last year by somebody from ICE ERO regarding getting access to ARGIS. And our answer was no, we're not going to permit them because they refused to comply or sign the SB 54 agreement. Also, we eliminated the immigration terms. We removed the ability for agencies to share new data referencing immigration ARGIS in applications, including criminal charges and terms like illegal alien or federal immigration or undocumented. What this means is people can search our database, but there is absolutely zero, none, nothing, no immigration data, no codes, no terms that will come back in return. They can populate the search with something they want to, but there's no returns because we removed all of that information in our databases that we have. Also, we added a reason for a search language. So when people log into the database and they want to provide a query, like for example, say they want to run Tony Ray, you know, my birthday, whatever it is, and try to find out who I am and what's going on, they have to put in a reason why they're actually doing the search. And up here, the example says they have to put in a crime case number, which would satisfy the request, or they could put in a homicide investigation, a robbery investigation, auto theft investigation, domestic violence theft investigation. There has to be a reason now for everyone to query in, and we do that because if any agencies have an internal affairs investigation or an office inspector general investigation, and someone wants to reach back and see what an officer or an agent or a deputy was doing, we have the record of the search and what they said, what they stated, what they were going to do. We also updated the login screen. Every time somebody logs into an ARGIS application, we added the California Department of Justice recommended acknowledgement language. I mean, I have it right here for you. Regarding warnings, we just put in what the state said to put inside there, and I'll read it to you. It says, federal, state, or law enforcement agencies shall not use any non-criminal history information contained within this database for immigration enforcement purposes. So we added that every time somebody logs into our screen, when they start to log in, this comes up. They acknowledge, they go forward. When they run they get the application they need, and when they run the query, the reason for the search pops up and they have to add in there. So we're tracking or setting up a track on what they say people are actually doing. Lastly, the biggest thing that we did in the end was we updated our training materials. Now, all of our training for ARGIS, these would be for new deputies, new agents, new people to ARGIS, or people that haven't used ARGIS in quite a long time, that maybe have forgotten how, because for whatever the reason may be. We do in-person training. We hand them documents. What our trainers out loud say during the course of the training, that you cannot use this for immigration purposes. We make it a department. We try to get an acknowledgement from the people that are participating so that people know you cannot use this for those areas. And I think the farther and farther we get away from the implementation of SB 54, I believe we had virtually no issues with that in that area. So if you take the updated training, the removal of access to immigration records, the removal of immigration terms, the adding the search language, and the adding of the login language, these are the 5 major changes that ARGIS did to comply with SB 54. And then within the last couple of months, SANDAG's legal did a research through the state on SB 54, and we found no new updates. There's no new requirements. There's been no amendments. So right now, ARGIS is working within the compliance of the standards of SB 54. I'd also like to note that the people that use ARGIS, I say we have state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies. You have to be an active member of a state, local, or federal law enforcement or investigative entity, or be a member of ARGIS, or be a member of SANDAG's Data Science, Criminal Justice Division, and a few other folks. To be a user, you have to pass a full law enforcement examination. You just have to pass that. And then every year you have to pass a class. It used to be every 2 years, but now it's every 1 year starting in 2024. You have to redo the CLETS training and do the CLETS certification exam to make sure that you can be a part of that organization. So We don't share this information with anybody outside of what is inside the users that are part of the ARGIS group. For example, we've had requests from people from universities or private groups, whatever, just to become an ARGIS member. And we would say no, because the purpose of ARGIS sharing is to support law enforcement investigations, analysis, things of that nature. It's not just for the general public to have access because, as someone said earlier, there is personal data in here and we do not want that data going out. And I want to mention, I think I was remiss. I think one of the articles that were written mentioned that SANDAG sells data. We don't sell data to anybody. We allow people to have access to the data, but we're not like an organization that might sell a bunch of phone numbers or address. We don't sell data to anybody. We don't provide bulk data to anybody. We provide access for people to do their law enforcement investigations, et cetera. And with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has regarding ARGIS in this issue.
Thank you, Director. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the public?
We have 2 in-person comments, and then we have 2 virtual. So we'll start with the in-person. First will be Flower Alvarez, followed by Patricia Mondragon.
Hello, everyone. My name is Flower Alvarez Lopez, and I am the co-director of Universidad Popular. Based out of North County, San Diego, which is our service area. Our work is driven by the community and it's conducted with the community. Much of our time is dedicated to the underserved, disinvested, hard to reach communities in North County region. We uplift and support the most vulnerable community members. We are also longstanding members of the San Diego Immigrant Rights Consortium, where we advocate for the rights and dignity of our immigrant brothers and sisters alongside 50+ San Diego-based organizations. In that space, our organization has gotten the opportunity to meet with different law enforcement agencies, including some that are in this room, in hopes to improve policy and practice. The folks we work with are historically impacted by shared law enforcement databases. In 2016, the Cal Gang audit proved how important safeguards are for databases, but also the need to be transparent and honest with the public. We are here to request more information around ARGIS. It is concerning that ARGIS information is so limited. We hope SANDAG will actively participate in educating the community around ARGIS. The public has the right to be informed about local databases. Our region does not have the best history in regards to shared law enforcement databases. Local government includes SANDAG, has the obligation to serve and protect all San Diego residents, regardless of their immigration status. Continuing to allow Border Patrol access to ARGIS database is dangerous because it provides Border Patrol with personal identifying data that can be used to deport our community members. This runs counter with SANDAG's commitment to create a San Diego region where every person who visits, works, and lives can thrive. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Next, we have Patricia Mondragon.
Thank you. Patricia Mondragon, Regional Policy Manager for Alliance San Diego. We were at the meeting. Thank you, Director Ray, for the update, and we look forward to continuing those meetings and discussions. We are deeply concerned that allowing DHS agencies, including CBP and Border Patrol, access to ARGIS will potentially cause harm to community members and lead to distrust in our local law enforcement agencies. Allowing CBP access to ARGIS database leads to mistrust in our local law enforcement, which puts all our public safety at risk. ARGIS contains police reports, which include personal information of witnesses and victims, which can then be utilized by DHS agencies to deport them. While the Border Patrol has signed an agreement that they will not use the database for immigration enforcement, the reality is they're an agency that has a long history of lying. Most recently, they lied to Congress about detaining individuals in open-air detention sites here in San Diego County, despite the fact that several media outlets had recorded them doing so. Previously, they ran illegal critical incident teams, which destroyed evidence, interfered in investigations, and intimidated witnesses to cover up their abuse by agents. Border Patrol has shown us time and time again that we cannot trust them at their word. Witnesses and victims will not feel safe coming forward to report crimes if they know that Border Patrol will be able to access their personal information from the police reports. It is not just the safety of immigrants that are at risk with DHS agencies having access to ARGIS. CBP here in San Diego illegally tracked activists and journalists who were helping migrants in Tijuana. In 2022, our organization worked with Professor Tom Wong at the U.S. Immigration Policy Center at UCSD to do polling on voter trust in CBP, and the results revealed a lack of trust in the Border Patrol agency. The question we have is that not should be asking.
Your time is
whether
up. Thank you. Next, we have virtual, the original draw. Go ahead.
Yes, either way with your mask on or off, Anthony, it doesn't sound good because you know what? You sat there while I was being assaulted by a sheriff. I'm a part of this ARGIS database more times than one. And the fact that we're not going to be sharing information because someone is illegal is rather ridiculous, because I was arrested after being assaulted and many times for speaking at a public meeting. And now I'm a part of this database. And then you can share my information all over the place with all of these law enforcement officers that can potentially use it against me, which they already have, because the San Diego Police Department has now considered me a threat to them, which is crazy because it's like, I don't know if I look like the Hulk or what, but it's interesting. And so it is being used against the people. And then you want to allow these people to commit crimes and come illegally, commit federal offenses, and then not use that against them, but you'll use it against other people. So there is no equity in this, and you guys can't be trusted because you're sitting here on one hand saying that you're not going to allow them to access this data, but then you're giving Border Patrol, DHS, and CBP all of the access. So it's kind of like an upside down kind of thing again, just like Luke Bergman telling us that, a court order isn't, is totally voluntary. But it's just interesting to see that you guys will exempt certain things, just like you're exempt from the trust surveillance ordinance. Right? It's like some people, have to have surveillance. Some people don't. Some people have to have all this data shared that it can be used against them, especially people in the community. But then heck, you know what? If you cross the border illegally, you're good to go. We're going to hide that data, even though it could potentially help save some people from being victimized in other crimes. So this is very negligent on your guys' behalf, especially when you sit there and let women be assaulted by the sheriff's department and exonerate them for it. There's no trust in you guys whatsoever.
Your time is up.
Good.
Next, we have 731. Go ahead.
All right, this is something to be as proud of as Bergman's Enigma wrapped in used toilet paper. Because it sounds like nobody really cares about our communities since SB 54 doesn't actually get real criminals. It's crazy that ICE actually did the right thing while ARGIS and the county sheriffs are completely in the wrong. Although in reality, they could just override this entire system since those running it refuse to follow our laws. For this data sharing information system, if there is no prosecution of the criminals, then is there any justice? Why do they get a free pass to breach our border and break our laws with exemptions on security and access to their data, while law-abiding Americans are constantly surveyed with ALPRs and biometrics just to drive? Aiding and abetting illegal immigration and disregarding federal law that refers to people engaged in this crime as illegal aliens, even though it's still the lawful term. By doing this, you local law enforcement have reduced yourselves to the low status of petty human traffickers in the same vein as No Mas Fuertes and Arizona. But who does this really benefit? Big corporations importing their new cheap labor source, admitted by politicians like Nancy Pelosi.
The best thing that we can do for our economy is to have comprehensive immigration reform. We have a shortage of workers in our country, and you see even in Florida, some of the farmers and the growers saying, why are you shipping these immigrants up north? We need them to pick the crops.
Pick the crops, they're going to be slaves. The Valueless Act has resulted in decreased safety and increased threats to our state and country security. The sheriffs are supposed to be an independent authority so they can actually put an end to all this unlawful nonsense. Unlike what the information bulletin says, you sheriffs aren't really executives of any law enforcement agency if you don't even execute laws. I'd much rather have a login screen pop-up that warns about the lawful punishment for treason, especially people like Javier Becerra, who is misusing the Attorney General position. This whole system is a misuse of law enforcement resources, the budget, and a blight on the concept of justice. The only legitimate addition is requiring a reason for—
Your time is up. Thank you. That concludes public comments.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the committee? Yes.
Clarification for me, and I fully support where it comes to where your efforts are in compliance with state law. Now, when it comes to questions of policy, just for background for new members like me, the oversight, any policy feedback that you would give from SANDAG or from this committee, would that be immediately applicable to edges, or would it have to go through a joint powers? Anybody else gets to chime in on policy questions rather than compliance?
Anybody can ask about policy questions, and we'll try to answer them up. But the policy, I guess the chain of command would be the policy when we change policy or review or approve policy. The first meeting would be the Chiefs and Sheriffs Management Committee, who would make recommendations, and that would come to this committee, the Public Safety Committee. This committee would review. And our attorney could probably tell me for sure, but I believe then after this committee, it would go to the full board of directors for implementation.
Most likely that is how that would go, yes. Got it. Thank you.
But issues related to policy can be brought up at any of the committees and to discuss, and this would be one of the oversight boards for us.
Additional questions or comments? I do really want to commend our staff, our SANDAG staff, Director Ray, for being so open and transparent. I really want to thank Alliance San Diego, SDIRC, as well as the ACLU and other organizations. I think ultimately folks want something that seems to be relatively fair, just transparency. And I think that's what our government and our institutions are all about. And so I look forward to ongoing dialogues and conversations. And, maybe we didn't touch upon the elephant in the room, but this came upon during an election cycle where the rhetoric on immigration and an anti-immigrant deafening noise is really so prevalent within our current electoral cycle. So I think that is what is the main driver, and the need to have that as a result. I think it's important for us to continue to have ongoing dialogues with our public agencies so that community organizations and members of the public can have faith in our organizations, that we are indeed very transparent and working together. So I look forward to ongoing dialogues with community members, residents, and our SANDAG staff to make sure that our organization is as transparent as possible, and we are not in the business of helping anybody get deported. Any additional comments, questions? I got really serious really quick. Sorry, guys. Okay, so if none, this is an informational item only. And with that, our next Public Safety Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, April 19th at 1 p.m. Thank you all so much.